The astral elves are elves who live on the astral plane, which you can essentially think of as space, but with magic. And rather than being an elf subrace, they're getting a whole new racial entry all to themselves. But how does their cosmic home affect how they play? Well, stay tuned for today's episode as we take it to space. The first thing of note about these elves is that they have adapted to the astral sea. So really they're just elves with a big old dash of magic space energy tossed in. They're described as having a spark of divine light about them that gives them their magic and a starry gleam in their eyes. Generally, this should give you free rein to add any space magic cosmic concepts that you can think of. Maybe sparkles in black hair, Star Trek style splotches or face ridges, or maybe the Vulcan bowl cuts if you so prefer. Beyond appearance, the big difference is their age. There's no real time in the astral sea, so a lot of astral elves are literally thousands of years old, and live up to 750 if they leave it. This gives them a whole range of timeless tropes to play with, disillusionment with anything time-related, and generally failing to understand how much time things take. Astral elves, like most of the newer race releases, use the newer lineage format, which means they assume you're picking your own ability score increases and a few other things like weight and height. This means you're just worried about the features, and also, strangely, that they're their own new race rather than functioning as a new elf subrace. Let's go over each of the Astral Elves' features and what they'll mean for your new elf from space character. Starting with creature type, you are a humanoid, and humanoids are the standard creature type, so there's nothing super interesting about it. You'll get targeted by all the normal stuff just like any other elf would. Your size is medium, which is also standard, so not much to really talk about there, and so is your base walking speed, which is 30 feet. Next up with Astral Fire, we finally get into the good stuff. It's not a full racial spell feature, it's just a choice of cantrips, but free spellcasting is free spellcasting. Out of the three options, Sacred Flame probably has the most value as a fully scaling damage cantrip, but both Dancing Lights and Light have fine value as utility options. It's also worth noting that you get to pick any of the mental ability score for the spellcasting on this cantrip, making that Sacred Flame option look even more appealing so long as you aren't purely a martial class. And then we have Dark Vision, literally the most common racial feature that's an actual feature, but it's always nice to have. Your starry eyes can see in the dark, which is pretty key to some encounters. And then we have Keen Senses. If you're going to get a free skill, Perception is the one to get. Perception is the most used skill in 5e, and you should basically always take it if you've got the option. Getting it here for free lets you choose another skill down the road. And then with Radiant Soul, this is by far the strongest feature Astral Elves get, and will likely be the reason you'd pick it over the other varieties of elves. This gets you a pop-up from death ability similar to the Half-Orc's Relentless Endurance feature, but a little better. Where Relentless Endurance pops you up from 0 with a single hit point, this new Radiant Soul feature pops you up with hit points equal to your proficiency bonus plus your best mental stat. So at early levels, probably 4 to 6 hit points, and maybe 8 to 9 later on. In later tiers, the difference between 1 hit point and 8 to 9 points isn't a whole lot, but at early levels, the difference between 1 and 4 to 6 is huge. At level 1, that's usually like half your maximum hit point total. I almost suspect they'll nerf this somehow for the final release, but for now, this is one of the strongest survivability racial features around. And then we have Trance. Here we tie back into the standard Elven stats with their trademark Trance state ability. Getting a long rest in half the time means that while the rest of the party snoozes, you can keep watch, and depending on how your DM rules conscious, you can keep watch in trance too. This makes you significantly less likely to be surprised while trying to rest, which can be a major thing if your DM has made a habit of sending monsters to sneak up in the middle of the night. And then we have Trance proficiencies. An Astral Elf's final ability takes the old standard Trance and puts a new twist on it. This essentially gives you 2 free weapon or tool proficiencies you can swap out for others whenever you finish a long rest. This opens up a lot of interesting possibilities. For one, it practically hands you all martial weapon proficiencies for free, since you can swap out for any weapon proficiency you happen to need. Find a shiny new magic warhammer, take a nap, and gain proficiency with warhammers. The tool proficiency option is interesting as well. Is a dungeon full of traps coming up tomorrow? Simply take a nap and swap over to thieves' tools for proficiency. Clever players will get a ton of mileage out of this feature. I only hope they don't nerf it, though. Since the lineage model detaches the race from the ability scores, there aren't any ideal classes anymore. Your Astral Elf can be an Artificer or a Warlock or any other class just as optimally. That being said, the trance proficiencies feature is incredibly useful for classes that use tools more often and gain bonuses for them like a bard or a rogue. Being able to pick up any martial weapon proficiencies on a whim also opens up some new combat options for those classes, like making sneak attacks with a whip. Finally, the Radiant Soul feature can give a degree of survivability to classes that previously had to rely on the half-orc for a similar feature. I think spellcasting classes that also want to get into melee like the Cleric, Paladin, and Warlock will find an Astral Elf particularly viable. While I obviously can't speak to any direct experience I have with this race, I can say that the people in my D&D group are excited for it, and after reading about it, I can definitely see why. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe because we put out new videos like this every week. And if you're building an Astral Elf character, I would love to hear about your ideas down in the comments. My name is Patrick Ferguson from Skull Splitter Dice, and until next time, farewell.